Hello and welcome to this video. Today I'm going to try and make some micro mosaics out of polymer clay. I saw a lot of people make micro mosaics with wax base and out of like actual mosaic pieces on like Instagram and stuff, and I thought they looked really pretty, so I wanted to try something similar with polymer clay. And I thought, why not change it up a little bit, make it more artsy in like using different shapes and gradients. So I'm actually using my like clay extruder here, and I mix the clay like colors, so I have some white and gray here, and I'm going to like just use the round strands here. I've definitely made way too many of these, but I only realized that later. I just, thought I needed more. The red was a bit crumbly even though I worked it a lot. That one also has a slight gradient, but not as much as the white. And then the same for the green. I'm actually using 3 colors and I'm kind of mixing them a little bit. The green is gonna be the background. And these are all the 3 colors that I'm going to use for my first one, and maybe you can already guess what I'm making here. It's a very simple little project, and I'm just gonna use like a tiny bezel charm to like make the mosaic. But yeah, after baking, I first had to separate these into the strands, and then for the mosaic I needed to cut them into tiny pieces. And like, I think mosaic where the pieces fit together better are more nice, but in this case I just really wanted to see what I can do with simple shapes, because I just wanted a starting point. For the base I actually mixed up some green just with a little bit of like clay conditioner, just to make it softer and easier to apply the pieces into this clay, and then I also added some bake and bond to the base. Cutting the pieces was actually very satisfying, but I realized later that I should have cut them way smaller. I should have just barely cut them a bit longer than the actual height of the edge of this charm, but you live you learn, and my fingers definitely learned later when I had to sand all this down. But for now I actually quite enjoyed just puzzling and like putting pieces together, trying to get the shapes and the colors in the like right order that I want them to. And I think by now you can kind of guess a little bit more what I'm making. It's becoming very obvious in a second once I get the bottom shape in. So yeah, I'm actually making a tiny mushroom here. I wanted some more lively colors, so the green is a nice background, and then for the whites with the gradient I tried to match like some of the like lighter parts of the cane where the light would hit, and then like a little bit of shading in some darker parts. And then for the background I just went random. Whichever green piece I picked up first I just placed down. And yeah, it was a bit tricky. The pieces kept slipping a little bit. I guess I used a bit too much of the conditioner. For the next pieces, once it has actually dried a little bit more out, like the clay dries out when you leave it just out in the open, it actually got way better. But yeah, this took a little while to like figure out where to place things and how to place things. But I think in the end I actually had a really cute charm, and although it was a bit tricky at first to place them, placing these tiny little, I guess, dowel pieces actually was really therapeutic in the end. I just zoned out with an audiobook and spent like, I don't know, half an hour or so placing all these. So it wasn't too bad, and you can definitely like use larger pieces. I've seen people use way more fine detailed pieces to like make things like this. I think this is similar, just like the baked version of how people would make like cane images, just layering like different pieces of like elongated pieces of clay together, and then I guess in that case smushing them. But I guess it's also kind of a mosaic. I want to upgrade my cane game eventually and make like some nice and detailed canes, but that is so much work that I need to like, first think of a design that I really like to use, and then hopefully I can make myself some really cute charms with that. I already made some canes before, like the fruit canes for like Emmet in resin. And those were a lot of fun, but the kind of cane I mean is like the larger cane that you can like slice up and make into charms, earrings, things like that. So maybe in the future, hopefully I can get into that, but for now, mosaic time. And yeah, once I had everything filled in and baked, it was time for sanding. This took an unbelievable amount of time. Like, I spent about 1 hour sanding, which is way more than I spent like placing these pieces, but I made them way too high, and in the end, after that 1 hour, I actually grabbed my Dremel. I kind of wanted to avoid it because this clay that I'm using is a bit gummy-esque, and you know, it like kind of rips the clay out, so I only sanded it down to a point where I just could go in with my sanding like stick thing here again and, you know, just sand a bit more. Plus the sander leaves behind like a little bit of discoloration in red from like the color of the sanding pad. So, you know, just to prevent that, I tried to do everything of the last bit by hand. Then I was like, what can I glaze this with? I don't want to use resin. So, oh yeah, I have this liquid Fimo. The clay I originally used had the same baking temperature as liquid Fimo, so I wasn't worried that this wouldn't work. So, you know, I just used this. It should get kind of transparent and work out nicely, and nope. My oven is a small oven, and I guess it had some residual heat from before, and even though I always put it like 5 degrees lower than it is recommended in the clay instructions, it completely burned. I guess the metal just really holds heat well, and yeah, it just overheated. So I tried to sand it down. Sadly, same counter for the clay underneath, so I wanted to try again, just with a lower temperature, just as an experiment, to see if I can make it work. So, you know, at this point, this thing was already ruined. It was discolored, you could hardly see the image. Yeah, I was really sad. I spent so long sanding, and this didn't work out, and yeah. In the end, it weirdly bubbled up. I'm wondering if the clay and the liquid Fimo are like not compatible. You know, again, the clay brand was not Fimo, so I'm wondering if they have some oils or something in there that reacts badly with the liquid Fimo, because I've used this before and I never had any issues. I mean, it turned the same gummy-esque texture, but it also like got super bubbly and murky in a way, and yeah. It did bond really well to the clay though. When I tried to like lift it off, I was like, hey, maybe I can peel this off. It just peeled out the entire piece. But yeah, super nice and flexible, but didn't hold. So at this point, I already knew I had to do this once more. So back to the basics. I actually decided to score the bezel charm this time. Again, bake and bond. The clay base definitely has, you know, dried a bit more, so it worked a bit better, was a bit stickier, but not too, like, flowy, so I could stick the pieces in more. Cutting the pieces smaller. Again, I learned from my first error. And then I just, you know, started placing again. This time, since I had more practice, I went in a little bit more deliberate, tried to mirror things a little bit more, just so they would look more even. And it actually worked out pretty well. Changed the shape up just a tiny bit, but I think the colors match together so nicely. I'm glad I made too many canes. It definitely helped out. And then I tried to like also mirror the background a little bit to make it less chaotic looking. It's still going to be a bit chaotic since it has this like different color variation, since I mixed, you know, the green tones, same with the whites and grays and stuff, but I think it will look a bit nicer if it's more orderly, plus it will keep the design a bit more in the center. The canes are all the same size, like the tiny dowels, so if I place them and I get even amounts on each side of the design, I can be pretty sure that it's centered. And yeah, here's it baked, and I had to sand again. This time it wasn't as bad. I didn't need my Dremel. I just spent like half an hour sanding. And then I was just like, okay, easiest thing to gloss this, nail varnish. So that's what I used. And you can see the clay did turn a bit dark. It did get a little bit hot, but that's my fault because I forgot to, turn it more down, even though I knew that it was still a bit too high after it still was warm. So, kind of really my fault. But yeah, this clay discolors really easily anyways. Like, I don't know what it is with some like cheaper clays. I guess they just aren't like as heat resistant with the pigments. I kind of knew that, but I went into it thinking, hey, that could give like a natural nice look to it, and I think it actually does. Like, I didn't want pristine like white, honestly, because I just don't really care for like, I like vibrant colors, but I like vibrant colors with a hue of like aging or like, like weathering. So if they're too pure vibrant, I don't know, it just seems a bit weird to me. I guess probably because I feel like it lacks a bit of character. Like, don't get me wrong, vibrant colors in the right mixes and matches can look really good, but in these designs I just felt like too much vibrancy wouldn't fit. But anyways, luckily that mushroom worked out, so I wanted to try something else, just for pure funsies, because I enjoyed placing these so much. I wanted to try bars, so I actually used my extruder with like a more slotted bit to make like these elongated rectangular pieces, and I baked them again, cut them up, and this one is supposed to be a sheep. It is gonna be very abstract, I knew that, but I just wanted to have fun at this point because I enjoyed the process so much. I just wanted to see what different shapes can get you, and of course you can always mix and match shapes, and that's the beauty of this. You can always like put shapes together, circles, triangles, anything that you can make it again into, you can like make into a mosaic. So for this one, since they were longer pieces, I actually had to like shave off some of the sides just to make them fit. I guess that's a bonus of the rounded pieces. They like can be crammed in fairly stably and like without too many gaps. These elongated pieces, especially on a round charm, obviously need a lot of trimming. But, it's really easy to trim them, so I just went in there. I chose white for the background since, I was at first thinking of like using blue for the background, but then I thought, what if the blue like squeezes through exactly where the sheep is? And I thought that would look not that good. So I was like, okay, white in the background, not too bad with the blue, also not too bad with the green. So that's why I chose white. Definitely hard. I maybe should have chosen grey though. I think the white is a bit heavy, but knowing that it actually darkens while baking wasn't too much of a problem. This one, since it had larger surface, also took a while sanding, and I went a little too deep with my Dremel here because you can kind of see like a bit of the orange on the sky. That's again just fully my fault. Like, some of the brown is normal, but some of the like lighter yellow orange on top, that literally just me like going too deep with the Dremel and not being able to sand that away with the sanding stick anymore. My bad. I still think it looks really cute. Like, I'm not mad at it. I'm just, a bit mad that it happened. But yeah, overall, I think my favorite is still the mushroom. I still really like the block sheep though. I think it looks funny. I don't know if you can see a sheep in there. It's definitely some kind of creature, but again, I had a lot of fun, and this was pure experimentation, and it was kind of like a puzzle, honestly. And I think maybe if you would cut up like your clay, like make thin sheets that perfectly fit into these, cut them up into random bits, and then try to make actual mosaic, I think that could also look really cute. I just also really like the symmetry of the like little pegs and the little, rectangles that I used here. I also think that the like little mix of the whites and greys and the rectangles look really fun. I think it gives it a little bit of like shading and shape and just a little bit more randomness, and that's truly what I was hoping for, just a little bit of randomness in this orderly pattern, just at least with the colors. Let me know in the comments below if you prefer the randomness of actual mosaic or if you know, like this more like simple shaped one. Definitely very fun to try, would recommend. And as always, I hope you have a great day. See you next time. Bye bye!